Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our final neighborhood leaders meeting for the year that is 2023. Our agenda is a little light in that we normally just go through a few updates and then make sure we check in and see what you all have planned for the beginning of the new year, and then try to answer a few questions if possible. So just want to thank you all for being here. It's definitely a valuable opportunity for me. Remind you that I do take this very seriously, to have a moment to be able to talk to representing our various neighborhoods and have a pulse of what's going on in the neighborhoods. And it's a valuable opportunity to be able to get that feedback and to have the moment where you get to express whatever it is that you need to, which you all have never hesitated to be able to do that with me, and I do appreciate that. Just kind of next item was to really go through some zoning updates. This is where I get myself in trouble because clearly the biggest topic of the day is the passage of the zoning ordinance on Monday night. And regardless of where you stand on the matter, for, against, or concerned and not sure, or just want to be quiet and not join the fray, do understand that it is a complicated situation and a matter that really does not necessarily change, which is typically how I've always appreciated these matters in the past. We're going to do our best to continue to help everyone understand the steps involved in implementation. I don't believe I ever shared with this group my personal take on matters of this size and scope and challenge, but passing the ordinance is the easy thing. Even though it didn't feel very easy and it took a lot to get to this point, implementation is the key. That's the hardest part. It always is, and it always will be. Because what we'll learn in that process are the unintended consequences and the various things that we didn't necessarily understand as council was considering these various matters. And in the role that I serve in, that I'm here to implement council's vision, and of course that is a heavy weight that falls to me and the team to try to uncover what those various matters may be and bring them back to council for further deliberation and consultation. So just want to say to you that I've already expressed to James that I understand how much work he has ahead. This has felt like a lot for him and his team, but it is a lot more to come. And there are a number of things that did not get finalized through the process. And those are things that he will continue to work on. And one of the things that we will do is capture what is the list of to-do items and publish that list so that you, the public, will be able to understand what are the various steps and what timeline we might anticipate for addressing some of those matters. So there is a lot more to this, and we'll keep you posted as we move forward. I want to remind you all that we do have a city manager's budget forum will be held at Carver on January 11th at 6 p.m. And that is an opportunity to come. I'll give brief remarks as to how the budget is shaping up, kind of preview what the story is for this new fiscal year budget that is in the works as we speak. And it gives us an opportunity for the public to be able to weigh in. I've asked our communications and public engagement director to kind of reimagine the moment that you all will experience on that night should you attend. And we will have you engage with staff in a few conversations. It'll be optional as to which ones you participate in, but the goal will be to allow you to go to the areas of interest and speak to our professionals on those subjects, capture that information, and then that information will come back to me and the budget team as we start to process final decisions that still need to be made. We also have the public hearing on the CIP, which I'm looking for the date. I want to say it is the 9th of January, which is a part of the Planning Commission meeting at 6 p.m. So if you are interested in hearing more details as to how we have continued to work on finalizing the CIP for the new budget, you'll be able to participate in that conversation as well. So I just want to make sure you know about those two key moments. And we are deep in budget season. It has been a lot. It always is. We're meeting with all the various departments and offices right now, getting their take on the actual budget submissions that they provided to the team And then we will wrap that up over the course of the next 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks or so. And then we start doing the sausage making of trying to see what fits, what does not fit, what makes it in, what will go into a list for a future year, and what has to be declined. And we'll come back to it another time because we can't get everything in. So all that work is coming to an end, while at the same time, one of the most complicated things that this organization is going through right now is the integration of collective bargaining. With the organizing of 3 units in police, fire, and transit. It's a very expensive proposition. It is a necessary one in that employee relations is important, and you want to make sure that your team is as close to satisfied as possible, which I say as close because we know that we won't satisfy everyone. This is long overdue for us to modernize our human resources posture and to make sure that we are providing what we consider to be fair wages for the work that we ask of these individuals who come and serve this community. So we have a lot in that regard to try to get through. It is a very expensive price tag associated with that. And it's further complicated by the idea that we did the work on a class and compensation study last year, got the results of that, and learned, of course, that we were underpaying the rest of the staff. So now we have to find a way to pay them better. And in that effort, it just complicates how much we have to try to get done in one budget cycle, and then attempt to spread that out if we can. So I will be taking a break very soon to rest up for what is going to be a January out of this world as I try to pull this together and get a budget together for council for the 1st of March. But there's a lot to be considered, a lot to be done, and I'll do my best to make everyone happy, but I don't make promises because I can't keep all of those. So those are the basic updates. So that's a lot. There's a lot going on. That's basically the message. There's a lot going on as we end the year, and there's a lot going on as soon as we kick off our new year, and we'll be trying to get those things done. See, Alex, I see a question here of in-person versus virtual. So do we want to, is that a question to ask this group if they would like to come back together in person? I assume
it was a question from a neighborhood leader. So I wanted to bring it up to the attention of the group to discuss that and see what they would like to do in 2024. I mean, if attending the meeting by Zoom works for everybody, I will continue that. If it's in person, we have a platform here to decide that so that come January 1st, we know what to do for 2024.
Is it possible to do it in a hybrid way? Because I'm sure some people prefer in person, and some people simply can't do it in person.
Yeah, we can try it, but I just want to caution. If you're gonna be doing it from home, sometimes it can be challenging. You know, we've had meetings here with committees. From time to time, they lose connection, and it's pretty difficult, you know, to try to reinstate the connection while the meeting is going on. So I just want to put that out there. There are some challenges with having it hybrid.
All right, so I think what we'll do is if you would just put your, some people are already putting their responses in the chat, do that. Since we're recording this, we can always go back. We'll give that some consideration and then come back to you all with some notice as we move into the new year. I do need to check to find out how our communications team is situated for being able to support another hybrid type arrangement, plus council still has to determine what their long-term plans are in regards to a hybrid approach or not. So if you would, just everyone make sure you weigh in on what your take is on the right way for you. If we do go to in-person, I think the goal would be to try to preserve some hybrid ability, because in this moment, we definitely want to make sure that all neighborhoods are represented, and they may not. Let me also go back, in the fact that I gave the update and I went through a number of things there. Is anybody interested in asking a question in regards to what you heard in that update before we move really to the questions that you did pose?
I was going to ask if you could repeat the date and time of the budget forum at Carver Rec.
Okay, that it's on November, I'm backwards. January 11th at 6 p.m. at Carver.
Thank you.
All right, Alex, I guess we'll go into questions and responses. Are you
Yeah,
or what are we doing?
Yeah, I think we had that that item was provided to everybody ahead of time, unless anyone has any questions regarding the responses. I think we have staff here to be able to respond to those additional questions. Otherwise, we take the questions if we can't provide the responses, and then we get the feedback later on after the meeting.
We go around really quickly and have everyone say what neighborhood they're from because it doesn't come up on the screen.
All right, let's do it this way. I'll call on the boxes as they appear on my screen, and if you would just announce the neighborhood then. Mark, you're on mute.
Off downtown and the mall.
Adrian, it says Fry Springs. Fry Springs, is that correct?
That is correct.
Great. I see Julia Jones, Lewis Mountain. J. Scott Venable. Bill Emery. Which neighborhood?
Not really a neighborhood, Sam. our neighborhood
Boys, that's the
association is
Boys
defunct.
Jonathan Rice, Little High. Ben Heller.
Meadowbrook Hills Rugby.
Lynn is Kellytown.
That's correct.
Becky Calvert.
Greenleaf Terrace, part of Barracks Rugby.
Carmelita.
Fifield.
Mike Casano.
Johnson Village.
There's a SH. I don't know the name on that. Not sure who that is.
SH is Stephen Hicks.
Oh, that's my Stephen Hicks. Okay, so he's not a neighborhood, he's a city. And then I have an iPhone with no name. May just be one of our people listening in, hopefully. Okay, I think that's everyone. Kimber, which neighborhood are you representing?
I'm Belmont Carlton.
All righty. Okay, Alex, is there, I guess, let me ask this question of the group. I did not get a chance to read the questions submitted. So anyone submitted a question and got a response? Is there anything further in regards to that maybe you can bring that up for further clarification? If you need?
Hey, Sam. It's Mike Hotch is here. The questions that were submitted, there was one for the police department that I did not respond to written. Did you want us to respond to those now, or did you want to just wait until you go through the questions?
Did you not because you didn't have time, or because you didn't want to put it in writing? What was the reason?
No, not at all. Honestly, it was just once. It was like a small question that I missed, to be honest with you. And I just saw it. So it was about our vacancies.
All right, you go ahead and if you would state the question or restate the question, answer it, but make sure Alex gets it in writing so that we can include it. We do, I don't know if everyone knows this, but we do take your questions and the responses provided by staff and include that in the city manager's report for the upcoming meeting, the next meeting following when we have a meeting, so that the larger public gets the benefit of seeing questions and answers as well.
Okay, I can put that in. So the question was, what is the current vacancy rate for the Charlottesville Police Department? So we, effective next week or January 1, we will have 2 vacancies.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, we made a lot of progress now, and I do want to put the caveat: we only have 2 vacancies, but we still have a lot of officers like in training, whether it be the police academy, field training, post academy training, stuff like that. So, but we're making progress.
Okay.
And I'll put that. I'll send that to the list.
All right, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda was announcements. Is there anything anyone, and really we can fold that into the neighborhood roundtable. So if you would just start using the raised hand icon, we'll call on you and we can do both of them.
Is there still going to be time for other questions?
Yes, we can do that. That'll be a part of the roundtable. So if you want to ask the question, then that'll be fine as well. Did anyone want to start? Or Kimber, since you said that, why don't you start?
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I know John asked a lot of questions about affordable housing in the pre-questions. I'm not sure if everyone's had a chance to look at that. I just wanted to say first, and I'm not sure if we want to go over that a little bit. But besides that, we as a neighborhood association had written counsel with a fairly extensive email, and I went and I said something about it regarding proffers. Bill Emery himself also spoke on that matter at a city council meeting, because in the zoning map, there are, or last I looked, at least, I'm not sure it's changed, but there are contradictions and violations of the proffers in the map. And so we were looking for answers to how that was going to be, what do you call it, fixed. Thank you.
All right, that'll be something we'll have to check in. James is there. James, are you aware?
Yeah.
Anything specifically that you want to speak to?
I mean, the short answer there, Kimber, is that proffers are tied to specific pieces of property and they run with that property. So those proffers are permanently affixed to that property. When we publish the final zoning map, they'll be online. There'll be a layer you're able to toggle on and off that'll indicate properties that have PUDs and proffers and those types of things on them. But if you had a proffer that said, no, I'm going to pick a business, right? No veterinarians on this property, right? No veterinarians allowed on this piece of property. And then we pass a zoning ordinance that allows veterinarians on that piece of property. The proffer still rules. So the proffer is still in effect, and the proffer still says no veterinarians on that piece of property.
And I understand that, or we understand that. Our concern is that there have been challenges to proffers in Virginia, and there are some feelings that they're not that they haven't been enforced in Belmont, for example. Already the proffers that are on the books are not being enforced because there is amplified music down there, etc. So the concern is that it is setting the neighborhood up for some future fight with a big developer who comes in, who wants to put in a private club serving alcohol as apparent is in the nexus or the chart for the church. And maybe it has to go through an SUP process and all that, but to our mind, it's kind of a problem because it's setting the future neighbors up for a problem. Thank you.
James, and since we're on this topic, can I just ask maybe a higher level question that I've been asked by people in my neighborhood, which is, and I've gotten different answers from people about this, but your input would be useful. Is it your understanding that residents can move to enforce proffers as third-party beneficiaries, or is it only the city's power to enforce proffers?
I would say, to my understanding, proffers as part of zoning are the city's it's under the city's authority that those are enforced, the same way that any other portion of the zoning ordinance is enforced. I think the difference is many proffers are then proffer requirements or rules are then replicated within HOA requirements. And obviously the homeowners association enforces those. Yeah, proffers are
Like a pure proffer.
pure
that is not-
proffer is
yeah.
it basically becomes, when a proffer is accepted, it becomes an aspect of the zoning and is enforceable by the city through our zoning enforcement authority.
I don't want to sound contentious. I will just tell you that our experience, our long experience in Belmont, is when you call the police, which is a city service, they will not enforce the proffers. They say that is not our job. And there's no one to call at NDS at 9 o'clock at night. And additionally, there has been a history or where what happens is there's the music going on is too loud, someone calls the police, then what happens is magically the music goes down, so when the police arrive, it doesn't violate any decibel levels anymore, and so there's no problem. And this is what's happening and has happened. So how do neighbors get these proffers enforced?
Well, sure. It sounds like you're talking in particular about a proffer related to noise violation. And, it seems to me that I should touch base with the chief here and talk about how we could deal with that issue.
And I'll add in that regard that, notwithstanding that there have been issues in the past, keeping in mind that most of the folks that are now in charge are different. And we need to think through what are the issues, let's get them on the table. And if we need to get around a table and start to wrestle with some individuals who are not doing what they're supposed to, we can do that too.
And let me clarify, as far as bringing the chief in, it's still my office that has to enforce that zoning rule. If it's a zoning rule, it's still ours. But as you note, we don't have staff available at midnight when a noise violation is occurring. That might also be a violation of the zoning via a proffer. So we'd have to work through a solution to that.
But there
Hey,
is-
I can,
Okay.
if I could just chime in real quick, ma'am, if you want to, if you could send me like a specific address you're talking about, we can look into it and follow up specific to the noise ordinance issue and pull calls for service to see how often it's happening and stuff and address it from that angle. You're right. It is, enforcing noise ordinances are complicated. You have the decimal level issue. Typically we try to gain compliance with warnings, but if it's a continued issue, if you reach out and send me something, it would just be chief@charlottesville.gov, and I'll follow up with you and we can work on it.
I will.
If I may
would just
comment.
Well, let me just say that the last time this happened, I was there. I called the police. Then they came to my house. I asked the police officers what was going on. They said they couldn't enforce it. I said, could I please have a copy of the police report on this? Because this kind of thing had happened many times. And they said, you'll have to go downtown on Monday, because it was a Friday night, I believe, to get that. So, I dragged my sorry self downtown on Monday, helped do some Spanish translating while I was there for someone. And I was told there was no police report. So these are the issues that we're dealing with. Thank you.
Those are the things we can follow up on for sure. So
They may make a comment concerning the proffers. The city has a long history of not enforcing them, even when brought to the attention, and not just the noise level, but other things such as in the Belmont Center is a good example of some of the restaurants adding on to their locations when they were not supposed to do it. And the city basically, when it was brought to their attention, looked the other way. I remember one time there was a meeting with the individuals and basically got a slap on the wrist basically, but ended up immensely increasing the size of their restaurant.
That's very true. Thank you, Mark.
James, what are the tools that the city has, other than the police for noise in the middle of the night? What are the tools that the city has for enforcement, and what do you use to do that?
I don't, help me understand. Are you referring generally to the noise ordinance?
No, I'm referring to proffers in general. If somebody's violating the proffers, how do you enforce correction?
So proffers, I'd say, I'm not sure that we have very many proffers that deal with the issue of noise. I would guess that the ones in Belmont absolutely do, but I don't know how many of our proffers relate.
I'm not talking about noise. I'm talking about proffers in general.
Okay, I'm sorry. Proffers in general. Got it. So like anything else, there's two pathways to enforcement of proffer rules. One is when an application comes in, it has to be reviewed against both it has to be reviewed against the zoning ordinance, with the proffers being inclusive of that. So if somebody is seeking to do something that's in violation of the proffers and they've submitted an application, it has to be caught at that point, and the review process has to kind of flag it and say, you can't do that. You can't pursue that use at that property, or you can't do that type of work at the property, and the application for a building permit or whatever is denied. And then the other pathway is usually through complaints filed by neighbors or others, flagging an issue and sending it to our zoning enforcement staff, who can then follow up, conduct an investigation, and then move through the citation and enforcement process from there as appropriate. Generally, we seek to resolve the issue. That's our number one objective. We don't necessarily, if we can avoid going to court, we do so, but we have that tool in our toolbox, and we absolutely pursue it and have done so where we can't get compliance.
I guess one of the challenges with the new zoning that's been approved, as was said earlier, the implementation is the hard part. I think enforcement is going to be a really critical feature. I'm familiar with a town up in New England that is unable to enforce because they basically had, the first few times they tried to enforce, drained their bank account of the budget allocated to that type of action. The developers figured it out and just kept building away, and the city couldn't do anything about it because they couldn't afford to sue them. And I guess what I want to understand is the enforcement process that we've anticipated our needs for that. And how are we doing on staffing the Neighborhood Development Services office that I know had been struggling for a while in terms of being fully staffed? Are you fully staffed at this point with inspectors and everything else, or where are we on that front?
So my zoning division is fully staffed. That being said, I have put in a request for additional zoning enforcement folks, and we're working through that conversation. My staffing challenge is over in property maintenance. That's where I'm still seeking to fill positions. I'm thinking about the issue you identified from a funding perspective. Our legal services are in-house, so we shouldn't have an issue where we run out of money to pursue, citations and going to court and that type of thing.
Unless the volume's too high for the existing staff, which hopefully wouldn't be.
Sure. Sure. And if we get to that point, then it's a conversation with Sam about how we supplement our resources to address the issue.
I mean, the devil's always in the details, but I think enforcement is going to be, as we move forward, is going to be a really, really critical part of this whole process, to have a process in place that's efficient. I guess the other question is, if it's missed during the building permit phase, like say there is a proffer that says you can't double the size of your building, somebody misses that, and they get a building permit that allows them to double the size of the building. What recourse does the city have at that point if somebody's made a human error?
Yeah, that's a real issue, because state law only gives us, I believe it's 30 days to correct that error from the point of issuance of that building permit. So that's a big issue. It's one of the things one of the reasons we've moved to this the online permitting system, right? Because previously that was entirely done basically manually by a permit application came in and somebody had to go check the files. But now we have the new permitting software is actually GIS enabled. So the system itself actually has the capability of flagging that there's an issue on a given piece of property, issue, so that someone can then review those proffers and ensure that the proposed project or whatever is happening on the property is consistent with the proffers.
So all of the existing proffers have been preloaded into the system.
Right, exactly right. Well, and or even if they're not, the properties at least are flagged so that you can go and then check the paper files if it is in fact a paper file. But previously it was basically dependent on somebody thinking to go and look at go and look and search the files to see if there was something in there. And I mean, frankly, my understanding is that didn't always happen. And so there's cases such as was described where a project may actually have gotten through because somebody didn't go and look at the file on a given piece of property and confirm there weren't proffers there.
Thank you.
And I don't want to beat this horse to death, but I'm just, so it's on the record. It's the restaurant is the Southern Crescent. It was passed to turn into a restaurant on these specific proffers, one of which is it was to have a 20-foot buffer. They went and ripped out the natural buffer, what was there, and built to the property line. And we have said all this to the city already. They were not supposed to enlarge the space. They added this honky tonk bar on the back. In addition, they were not supposed to have amplified music, and there was amplified music for a long time. And I still hear it down there sometimes. It's not to the extent it was. When the city finally went down there and saw that they had increased the space to this other added bar on the back, they got a fine. So this is the kind of thing that has caused people to lose faith in the community with how the city works and with this whole profit system. So then there's a couple other things that they haven't respected, but I would like to get it resolved. And I don't know, can that bar be taken down?
Well, I want to say it's unlikely that a bar is going to be taken down. I don't think it's going to go that far. Just speaking about how government usually works and the laws there, they have a protection as well. And there's a conflict there. I think we could probably take a look at reconciling some more of what may have happened, what may still be, taking a look to see if what they have done, have they gone further outside of what had been agreed to when the fine was issued. There's probably more to look at. So we'll take note of that and we'll go from there. But I think it's safe for me to say that I can answer that question is no, it will not be taken down. It's highly unlikely. Sorry. But I will say that it is helpful to hear this. Do understand that this community has had a history before I got here, and not everybody likes all of what has happened before. And I'm here to hopefully try to help fix some things. And I can't fix everything, and I can't do it as quickly as I even want to do it. So I know I can't do it as fast as you want me to. But that's why we continue to have this meeting. That is why I decided I wanted to run the meeting myself, so I can get the information and get to the things that I really want to get to. This is the kind of stuff that I know that when I said it would be the hard part is implementation. I know exactly what we're facing. Because it always happens this way, that things happen, things go beyond where we might have desired them to go when we were thinking about them and talking about them. And then people are people, they do things even when they should not do those things. And we have to have rules and we have to have enforcement. So I hear you loud and clear on what we need to pay some attention to. And I'll talk to council a little bit more about it because I know, as James has said, he has put in a request. I did start this whole conversation with how many other things are on the table and how those requests get looked at. He knows how they get looked at when he issued the request. But we have to strike a balance with all of this. So I'm going to do my best to figure out how to get a little more capacity in his space to be able to address this, as we will have to do the same when it comes to monitoring the ADUs and just the inclusionary zoning aspect of what we've also passed. So hear you, and we'll continue a conversation on that. I do appreciate that. Becky, you've had your hand up, so let's go with you next.
Oh, thanks. Sorry, hit the wrong button. Two questions. One, what is the current timeline for the Rugby Rose Hill intersection? Like, when is the new improved intersection going to open? And two, I've heard that the city is going to be doing some cracking down on the short-term rentals, the Airbnbs. And I would love to know more about that, because we definitely have a few in this neighborhood where residents claim to live there full time and they don't, and they're party houses. And quite frankly, a lot of us are tired of living next door or across the street from these hotels where people are partying at 4 a.m. I mean, you know, if we wanted to live around that, we'd live closer to the university. Anyway, those are my two questions.
Understood. I'll take the second question. James will be coming back to the community as a whole in a conversation about short-term rentals.
Okay.
Council made that decision as a part of the consideration of the zoning ordinance that they wanted to take that particular topic offline and deal with it directly.
Can I add to that, Sam?
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have any sense of timeline yet?
I don't have the absolute sense of timeline yet, but we are already cracking down on these, just to be clear. About a little more than half of our enforcement actions over this past year have been against short-term rentals. And we've had a fair amount of success. So if there are addresses that you'd like to send to us, please do so.
No, I know that my husband's been in touch with the city on at least one of them. And apparently you need 3 neighbors to complain.
No, I don't need 3 neighbors to complain. One is
Well,
sufficient.
then I will definitely drop you a line. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, in regards to the intersection, I am not aware of the schedule. I know we've had some issues there. Stephen, I know you're traveling. I don't know if you.
No, I'm not traveling. That's where I was, and had a great time, by the way, with my daughters for Christmas vacation. So we did run into some hiccups, but the pedestrian and the access to the sidewalk, it's open. I know we have a temporary ramp there, but we ran into some problems with some utility relocation and also the actual traffic pole, so it's called mast arm. But we anticipate, you know, for now people can use it, but we do anticipate by March it should be completed.
So we'll stay on that one and try to get that done. That we do understand that one did not hit the projected timeline, not even close, but we're working on that, and we'll try to make sure that we can become a little more accurate in what we think it might take.
Oh, that's fine. That's good. Thank you. I personally think it works better as a 4-way stop. But thank you.
Okay. Len, I saw your hand next.
So if I could follow up on Becky's questions with the other neighborhood question that comes up a lot in this general vicinity, which is, when is the construction of the new bike ped path underneath the bypass going to start after many months of it being completely inactive and blocking off a whole lane of traffic? So that's one question. Following up on Becky's. The second question is a question about the zoning ordinance and what type of issues might still be something that council would reconsider. I'm going to give you one example. At the very end of the process, council decided that they should move to 80% of AMI for the residential neighborhoods affordable threshold, where it had been 60% for months and months. At the very last minute, they raised it to 80%. And I think the rationale was that this would allow Habitat to build owner-occupied housing more effectively than if they stuck with the 60% threshold. But some members of council we're concerned that a 60% threshold makes much, much more sense for rent, because 80% of AMI for rent is $1,600 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. So that's not helping anybody's affordable housing needs. That's pretty close to market rate. And I'm wondering if the city would consider an issue like this where they may have set the dials too wide open for market rate 6-unit development on every RA lot. If you can build up to 6 lots and call 3 of them affordable and basically charge what is a market rate rent for those properties. So, you know, that's a very technical issue. I'm not sure council totally appreciated the difference between when they set the threshold at 80% for both rent and ownership in residential neighborhoods, what this might mean. It applies to RNA neighborhoods where they're worried about displacement, but it also applies to all the rest of the city where we have RA. So you don't need to answer the question about whether that's negotiable, but I'm giving you an example of a late added thing where council might not have fully understood what they were doing. Is that the kind of thing that council might still consider during the 1-month period? I guess they have to make final tweaks in this ordinance.
Okay. I'll give you a general answer to that is anything is possible. Whether it's likely or not is the question. Yes, it may have felt last minute. The deliberation of it publicly was last minute. The consideration of the matter had been going on for quite some time. It had come up in various aspects of council being engaged by various members of the public. So I would tell you that I'm fully aware of that much. Whether or not that particular matter will be reconsidered, I would say in the short run, probably not. There's a list of other things. I know that James specifically has an assignment for me in the early part of the new year, and that is to list out for me all the many things that he has to now finish in support of the zoning ordinance having passed, so that then we can work through what that looks like in the form of a plan for him with the schedule, because I've asked that that be something that we can then generate, one, for council's benefit and appreciation, but also to be able to share it with the public so that you all can follow as we take down the various steps and parts and pieces to completing this whole assignment. I would imagine that as things start to come forward in the way of projects being proposed is where this will probably regain the attention of council, and they then might start to question if something might need to be looked at again. And if you remember how some of the references that they made, they acknowledged that there would be occasions where a year or two down the road, they may have to reconsider some things. I think that's probably how they consider this particular matter. I'm not speaking for them because it's best that they have the ability to answer that question directly. So I'll say for now, that's how I interpret where we are.
Thank you.
All right, Ben, I see your hand.
Yeah, a couple of quick things. First, on proffers, I would just, James, just encourage you, if you could expose that proffer data in a way that people can see it, I think we could be your partners in flagging issues. I know that when development is happening in our area, people would definitely be aware of it, and I'd be happy as a person representing the neighborhood association to look up the proffers and make sure that nothing's been missed. Or if there are issues, with ongoing issues that at least, before we bother you, we can check it ourselves, and maybe take some of the pressure off you. Second question is just a question that I've gotten from a lot of people in my neighborhood is about the Barracks Emmett intersection project and the bike ped path that goes with that, and what stage that's at. My understanding is that the grant was approved, and maybe there was still some issues in terms of obtaining right of way. But I just keep getting questions from people in my neighborhood about that. So anything that you could offer on that would be helpful.
And you said Barracks Emmett, is that right?
Yeah, Barracks Emmett, and so there's intersection work at that Barracks Emmett intersection. There's also a mixed use path that goes up the hill at Barracks, and it's going to implicate changing widths of lanes and streets and stuff. So it seems like, you know, it's a fairly substantial project, and it's asking me, when is this going to start, and how's it going to work?
So Alex, I'll task you with, if you would follow up with Chris Ginzik on both the Barracks shared use path and the Rugby shared use path. I know both of those are VDOT projects, and I am not sure, unless Stephen, you have any idea of a latest update that you might have received from Parks on that.
No,
If not, then we can get that for you, and we'll include that when we send out the updated response.
yeah, what was the second one?
Rugby, the Rugby shared use path under 250.
Okay.
I know that both of them should be moving. I'd be surprised to hear that they aren't. So I don't believe that's the case. They both should be moving. We've done a lot of work with VDOT trying to make sure that we get our portfolio moving again. And those two projects were on the list. And there are grant funds that have a clock attached to them. So we've got to get that done. So we'll make sure we get that update in the release of the document back to all of you. Adrian.
Hi, I have two questions. One is I submitted some questions from the Fry Spring Neighborhood Association in advance, and I'm wondering if now is the time to bring those up. They should be pretty simple answers. And then I had a comment back to the Rugby Rose Hill intersection.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I know it's like still, you know, incomplete, but as a crossing guard, I notice that if you're turning right, if you're headed north on Rose Hill and then turning right at that intersection, a lot of the school buses and larger vehicles are having trouble navigating that. Probably nothing that can be done, but there's a lot of curb hopping that occurs there, and yeah.
Okay, we'll take note of that. I don't, like you said, I don't know if there's anything that can be done for all the various things that have been put in place to help make it navigable, but we'll bring that. That is at least what we're hearing is happening, and maybe Brendan and others can take a look at it.
Thank you. Is now a good time for the other questions, or is that okay? Yes. So one question was about the pilot speed traffic enforcement at Johnson, but it's also you know, supposed to be coming to Summit, or formerly Clark and Buford.
Yeah, so I'm not sure where that project stands. I'll be perfectly honest. I thought we were moving by now.
Yeah.
I remember it getting approved. So I have already put a message out asking what's up with this project. So I will get that response out to you. I have your email that you sent reminding me about that not moving, and I'll try to get a direct answer for you so that you know where it stands.
Okay, thank you, because I didn't hear back from any of the counselors. Then another request for a bicycle rack improvement at Johnson Elementary. I don't know, is that safe routes to school? Should I talk to Kyle about that?
Yeah, that will be a Kyle matter, and my question is if it's not already on the list. We probably haven't, but check with him. I think that's fine to do, but
yeah,
that will be safe routes to school.
Thank you. Azalea Park, a sidewalk connection from Azalea Park to through the county pedestrian access.
That has been posed to us by the county on more than one occasion. We did not have the funds set aside for it. I brought it up in a meeting with the county last week. They're supposed to get us some additional information as to where they stand so that we can consider our share. One of the things that they had asked was even a possibility that they might do the work. We just pay the bill. So we're going to consider that, because we don't necessarily feel like we have the capacity to make this a priority. While I understand that the residents in the area would love the connection, it really does fall lower on the list of hot priorities, being perfectly honest with you. But I do get I get the reality of it would make sense to make the connection. It's not that we're opposed to it. I know at one point there was even some thought out in the community that maybe the city wasn't supportive. That is not the case. It's just a matter of timing. So we will be able to give you some feedback on that too, because they did bring that up in conversation with us last week.
Thank you. Repairs to the wall and the sidewalk along the intersection of JPA and Stribling. the retaining wall is crumbling over. I think there was a temporary fix for pedestrian safety.
Yes.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
finalized all the, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We finalized all the legal documents to get temporary construction easement to do the work, and we're ordering the material, and it's gonna be, we should be starting that, I'm hoping by mid-January to finalize that.
Okay, and who is speaking?
That's our.
Stephen Dick.
Sorry,
Okay, thank you. Also, let's see, measures to curtail speeding cars on Stribling, Robertson, and JPA. Anything in the works there?
Those are, we'll make a note of those. I would imagine that we have those on a list, and that's the question. That's a very good question. So we'll try to get an answer for you on those.
Okay, and then the Fontaine Avenue Improvement Project, is that just kind of gone dormant due to needing to focus on other things and funding?
No, it's in a stage of design, I would say, is probably the thing. We had a little beef with VDOT in regards to some of the design elements that the residents asked for beyond what we had pitched in our proposal. So we had to work that through. And then ultimately, I actually had to go back to council and ask for more money because VDOT didn't want to pay for certain aesthetics that we asked for. We've gotten all that squared away. Our right-of-way process is a bit challenged at this moment. I'm glad Stephen didn't unmute because I don't want him to talk about it. But we're trying to resolve some issues with how we acquire right-of-way for doing these projects. So it's not dormant, it's just stuck because we're still trying to work that out. But it is something that we're still working on.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, also the intersection of Jefferson Park Avenue, Cleveland, and Sunset, there's a lot of historically talk of like a circle there or some kind of amendments to like flashing beacons to that intersection and other bike pedestrian improvements. Is that also
When you say
priority, but not as high as others?
When you say a circle, are you suggesting a traffic circle?
Yeah, I mean, that might be like, 12 years ago or so, that might be out of the works, but I know like a crosswalk and some beacons to, slow traffic.
I'll say that I know that it's not a circle that we would be looking at because I don't know that we have any of those in the hopper at this moment. But we can find out if where we are in regards to it. Did you say you submitted these questions?
Yes.
Okay. So Alex, let's make sure we get those answers. Those should be easier for us to be able to get direct responses to as to where they may stand.
Yeah, those lists was forwarded to Public Works.
Okay.
They're working on it.
All right. Well, yeah, because those I know we should be able to give you some direct answers to each of those. I can tell you that the traffic circle is probably not on the list.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate how well you handle a lot of complexity and transparent with the group.
That's my goal. I try. All right, Mark, your turn.
Yeah, just two things I wanted to mention was one is I support what Lynn had to say. The whole upzoning plan was basically sold to the public as a way of creating some affordable housing. And when you run the numbers and so on, it just isn't true. So that really needs to be looked at some point. Also, I'm sending a email out to you where I'm asking in February, I'd like to have a speaker come out to NDRA at one of our meetings to basically speak about the upzoning and explain how it's going to be affecting our neighborhood. And I'm sure that there's other neighborhoods in the area that would like to do the same thing. So just bring that up.
I would second that need to get out into the neighborhood because I've talked to many people who either don't know what's going on or certainly don't understand it.
All right. Is there anyone else?
Yeah, just FYI, I just want to add, after this meeting, I'll send the information to the neighborhood associations. The Thomas Jefferson PDC, Planning District Commission, they're having a upzoning. There's somebody coming to speak there in terms of upzoning. And I think it might be a good opportunity for the leadership to to attend if you have time, and also to share the flyer with your constituents. So I will send it out immediately after this meeting.
I have a quick question that should be easy, if there's time.
Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, two really quick questions. It was my understanding that, is it Brendan, who was the, some sort of liaison with the neighborhoods that was, dealing with, traffic issues and projects around, I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember, there's someone else in our
Okay.
neighborhood association that has been dealing with him.
Brennan?
And she asked me to follow up. He was away on, it was somebody who was away on family leave, family medical leave. And I was just wondering, is he coming back, or is there someone as an interim that's serving his role? Because we were under the impression that there was no one really doing his job. And if you could speak to that a little bit.
Okay. So it's Brennan.
Brennan. Okay.
Yeah, he's the traffic engineer.
Okay.
He is back. He actually was at the meeting, just the council meeting. He made a comment about traffic. So he is here. I'm not sure what that reference is about with him being out, that the work wasn't getting done. We have other staff, so we don't have just one person doing some things. So I guess make sure that if you were to hear something like that, just don't take that as a solo answer. Maybe check with somebody else and see what else we can get for you, because it depends on what it is, but we probably could find somebody that can get you answers to questions if that's what you're looking for.
Did you say that Brendan was on the call, Sam?
No, he's not on the call today. I just looked up. That's what I was looking for. He was at the meeting Monday night.
I've seen a lot of violations with people riding scooters. And I mean, obviously you're not going to be able to have a policeman there on every corner. But just, I've seen a lot of dangerous stuff. And Mr. Stolzenberg might have even been on a scooter when he had his accident. I can't remember. I don't know, there needs to be some kind of education, public service announcement. People are maybe people are going to do what they're going to do, but there needs to be some kind of education in the community.
It's a combination of that. I'll tell you that this has been kind of one of those sore subjects for me, because the general public, of course, looks to the city as y'all should do something about it because you let them come here in the first place. And they are well used, which is why we don't want them to go away. I know they're a nuisance to many, but they're a resource to many others. And the goal is to try to get the balance struck between the two. We did spend some time with Veo this year, going back and forth, putting a little pressure. I did ask the team to put a little pressure on them because we kept hearing the various complaints. And we did renegotiate with them some things that they are going to be doing. And we have started to see some of that, including creating scooter parking lots in the city proper, not just on grounds, because they have been doing that already. But the goal is to bring that out into the community as a whole and see if we can get some more cooperation from the participants. They are, in according to everything that we hear from them, and we may have to push them a little bit more, they are punishing those individuals who drop them in the wrong places. And all they can do is levy a little fee in that regard. So until someone feels like that fee isn't worth it, then they won't comply. But the goal is to figure that out and to try to strike enough of a balance that we can keep that version of transportation available, because there's not just recreation. People are actually using them beyond that. And the goal would be to avoid losing them altogether, because we do see a high rate of usage in places that you might not think. James, did you want to say something else? I saw you turn your camera on.
Yeah, I mean, I could add on to that. Yeah, there were, as of, I'm not going to remember the date, it was either of September or October, there were actually 250,000 trips taken on scooters within the city limits. So they are pretty significantly used, and not just by college students. I know that may seem hard to believe. One of the things that we required them to do was, on your first ride, you have to watch a video on the proper and safe use of a scooter. And you're also, on your first ride, restricted to a slower speed. So there's a number of things that they've put into place, but particularly on the fines, they not only do they levy a fine, but if you are fined, I think it's 3 times, it's a 3 strikes and you're out rule. And that once you've hit 3 fines, you are no longer eligible to use a VO scooter. So it is important. The fines are levied when people park those scooters improperly, and anyone can report an improperly parked scooter simply by calling the number on the scooter or by using the city's My Seville app. We have an option in that, and either one of those lead to the company finding the individual, and again, 3 strikes and you're out.
And that's all great. Definitely. I'm talking about respecting regular traffic rules. I've seen just today, I saw someone blow through a stop sign, just zoom on, and I've seen people zoom through lights, take lefts on red. And then the other concern is helmets, but that's probably something that we're never going to win. But I'm just talking about regular traffic rules.
Yeah.
I can take note of that and push something out to our traffic folks to so we can pay some extra attention to that as well. So I wrote that down.
Yeah, that is a traffic violation, and that is pretty easy. If we can catch them, then we should be able to do something about that at least. I do think there's always a little more, and I've had experience with bike share and scooter companies in the past, and there's a little straight talk conversation that probably needs to happen as well, and then they can join that. I like the idea of a PSA, and we might need to give some thought to what we might be able to do in that vein as well. All right, my friend Jonathan, what do you got for me?
Hi, let's see. Wanted to thank you for the detailed written responses. But since we're talking about scooters, my 9th question was about e-bikes, because there does seem to be a lot of sort of built-in assumptions about people getting around the city on e-bikes, and the fire hazard, is with the battery, and this is an issue. This has been a very difficult issue in New York and other large cities, and there's the response for coverage. But I mean, these are fires that aren't things that you could put out with sprinklers. It's not just that the batteries can cause fires when they're defective. Obviously, like given X number of e-bikes, the odds of water batteries going bad and causing a fire can be a serious thing. But it's not just that they can catch fire, but the fires are very difficult to extinguish. And I just wanted to sort of pedantically clarify about that, if you don't mind. But since I have your attention, if I could just follow up, what can we do? What can my neighborhood do at this point to try to get the ball rolling with some sidewalk construction and because I mean, if we're going to have density, we have to be able to walk. Because we don't want everybody to have to feel like they have to drive to every place, and just really should be easier to walk. And some of these sidewalks, I mean, it's 2 people can't walk side by side, and it's not just my neighborhood. I mean, I've lived in a couple of different neighborhoods from town, but I mean, there are utility poles in the middle of this. I mean, people with pushing baby strollers, people with walkers.
Right.
We just, why can't we make that a top priority?
So let me say to you that it is a top priority for me, and I have staff who are tired of me talking about sidewalks, and I'm not going to stop talking about sidewalks because you all won't stop talking about sidewalks. It is a priority. Part of our problem has been that we have allowed ourselves to get that out of whack, where we stopped doing new sidewalks and never really got back to it. That's the honest answer. Now we only do a new sidewalk as a part of a new project. We're just not building, not constructing new sidewalks just because we need to construct them. I found that some time back and found that deeply frustrating because that is an incomplete public service project if you're not doing sidewalks when you know you don't have sidewalks everywhere. I've had some internal conversations. It came up again as a part of the CIP process with the Planning Commission back in November. I know it'll be a big feature of the public hearing that's coming up as well. We're trying to figure that out internally. We've done some analysis. We got access, got a grant, got some analysis done, and our transportation planner is trying to help us figure out transportation as a whole. That we need to be doing. I met with the transit director this morning, actually talking about a transit planner to go along with that to complement thinking about this more broadly. But the sidewalks aspect of it is, some of it right now is just trying to figure out what capacity do we have to do sidewalks? Then how do we make a list of projects, then prioritize said list? We have all these projects identified either in a bike ped master plan or Streets That Work plan or just the general list in the office. But that's too many competing priorities when you have them in multiple places. So one of the conversations that I've started that I've been pressing on right now is to get one list. And right now my desire is I just want a list that tells me what are we going to produce in the way of sidewalks by the end of this fiscal year. And then what might we be able to do next fiscal year. And once we commit to what those things are, it is my intention to put it on the website so that you all know that, and then you can expect that. That's the
That would be great.
that we're doing internal to try to get to the repeat things. You all have been taxed with having to remind us what we're not doing. I'm trying to take some of that stuff off the list because it frustrates me just the same. And I know it frustrates staff. And part of what I'm trying to get some of the staff to see is you have information that the public wants, and for whatever reason, we just haven't given it to them. If we give it to them, they may have fewer questions or different questions that actually might not feel the way they feel right now. So part of that is just trying to, change the tenor of the conversation, get us focused, and then get the information together, and then more or less have a plan and then work that plan. So I have more to say in regards to sidewalks coming up very soon, because I did say to the Planning Commission that that was my priority, was to get a quick list of what we prioritize so that at least people can embrace the notion that the sidewalk section we just did in front of the AT&T building that has been long ballyhooed about, we can move on down the road and get some more sidewalks done in places that we know we need it, because that one was a bit offensive to me that was the only little section of sidewalk that did not exist.
It's very small, yeah. It's very modest. But thank you. That's a great answer. I look forward to seeing the list.
And I'll definitely share that with you.
Great.
Okay, Mark. I'll let you
Just want to comment about scooters also. I've used the CIVO app a few times to report some. And one of the things that it asks you to do is put the serial number of the unit in the question on the app. And some of those numbers are very, very hard to read because they're so small. So I just wanted to mention that. Also, just wanted to mention something else that I noticed, but in Charlottesville, contractors are supposed to be, and the city's supposed to be using, whenever they put down sidewalks or do concrete, they're supposed to be using what's called city mix. And sometimes they're not. And I noticed that on the Belmont Bridge, they got city mix on the sidewalks, but on the walls, they used a white concrete mix. And really, they should have been using a city mix in both locations.
I'll have someone take a look. I'm sure we're
not a whole lot you can do about what's already been done, but just want to point that out.
okay. Well, we can take a look at that and see what's going on. I don't know that we would be out of compliance on that because VDOT is inspecting regularly, but that's something we can check on. Okay, so thank you all. I appreciate it. Been a very interesting 2023. Lord knows it's been interesting for me. But I look forward to 2024. I hope you all do as well. I hope you have a great holiday and that you are well in the new year. We have a lot of good work ahead. I'm going to remain positive because that's where I love to hang out. And then as we get more answers to your questions and problem solved, then we can all be excited about what a great place it is to call Charlottesville home. Thank you all. Have a good
Thank you,
evening.
Sam.
Sam.
Yes, take care.